Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome back by popular demand Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, who is the co-founder of Strategic Coach. Dan, for those that forget his background from previous podcasts, he's been my personal coach since 1998, so for 23 years. He is a mentor of mine in business, and I believe he's the best coach on the planet, and is changing the world to make it a much better place. But he's also my mentor when it comes to health, and which, as everybody knows, which is what our podcast is about. Dan, we just tuned in, and I looked at him, and I didn't tell him this, but he looks amazing, and he's 76 years old, and turning 77 in May. I can't believe it, and I know I say this, and I've said it before. But when I started off in coach in 1998, I believe Dan looks younger, fitter, and healthier than he did in 1998. So Dan, huge welcome back to the podcast, and thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And, Babs and I have really taken advantage of the lockdown year. And so I was doing a positive focus. We had a team meeting this morning. So we do a positive focus where everybody shares what they're excited about. And I said, hands down, since the March 13th is when we closed down for our in-person workshops, actually in-person companies. So we've been virtual, both backstage and front stage. And I said, hands down, best year of sleep, best year of exercise, best year of eating. I said, this has just been a great health, and we're pretty good. I mean, we've been that, but we did a lot of traveling, and until you don't have to do it, you don't realize how disruptive travel is for sleep, for exercise, and for health.
Yeah, no, I know. You know what? I've experienced similar thing, because I think you and I used to run into each other in airports, and it's nice.
You were usually on your way back from doing cycling in Europe, or you'd been skiing and some exotic place. So
come on, Dan, I was doing business. Come on.
Well, that's good. If you can convince Revenue Canada that that's the case, then you're a good man.
So tell me about that, because we're coming up to a year, which is crazy. But you mentioned that you're doing things, and you've looked at this past year in terms of improving and bettering your health. Would you mind sharing, like, what are you doing? I'll say, what are you doing different this past year, or what maybe have you focused on more than you did previously?
Well, Kevin, in Coach, we make a distinction about entrepreneurs. Whether you're a multiplier, you take ideas and you take them to the world, and you're 100% multiplier, or you take complexity that other people have and you simplify, and I'm 100% simplifier. And if you can team up a simplifier with a multiplier, it's great, because neither of them wants to do what the other person does, but really feels enhanced by what the other person can do. So I'm very plugged in through Peter Diamandis at Abundance 360 into the longevity world. And I've noticed since we started the Abundance 360 conferences every year that longevity is the topic that's like a camel who goes into the tent. Pretty soon there's nothing in the tent except the camel. And what I notice every year is that longevity gets an hour longer or 2 hours longer in the program, because it's the one subject that, regardless of what your other interests are in technology, I think it's the one topic that everybody takes personally. Can I get an extra 10 years? Can I get an extra 25 years? And this year was fabulous on that topic. Not all the topics, but on that topic, it was fabulous. But what I tried to do, because it's a bit like drinking from fire hydrants right now, because there's so much movement, there's so much investment, there's so many technological breakthroughs, the teamwork has increased, and we saw that with the COVID vaccine, how fast medical teams and scientific teams can move when the governments are writing. Basically, you fill in the amount, we'll write the check. And I try to say, I'm a kind of, is there one thing that I can concentrate on that does a lot of other things? So can I achieve 10 things by just focusing? And all my literature, and we've talked over the years, we've had a couple of decades of discussion. And the thing that I've really focused on was muscle. Um, I'm really good. I've always been really good cardio. I know you're terrific cardio and everything else, but you do lose muscle. If you don't work at it, you lose muscle. And muscle, um, I think muscle is probably the key indicator whether you feel confident about your age, if you feel motivated to be very active, and everything. So what I did some reading as much as as much research as I'm inclined to do. And I just said that squats were the greatest. If you just wanted to focus on one thing, were squats. So in February of last year, so I'm approaching a year, I started with free weights and doing squats. And I started with 40 pounds in each hand, so it's 80 pounds. And I just increased it. I increased the number of reps, and then I get to a point where with 80 pounds I could do 50. 5 sets of 10. This would be an hour exercise with other exercises, aerobic and other exercises. And then I'd go, I'd take it up 10 pounds, and then I'd go to 90 pounds, and then I'd go to 100 pounds. I'm just on the threshold of going to 140 pounds.
Holy smokes. Wow. I
So
better
I'm
get going.
doing, so I can do 50 reps, 5 sets of 10. I can do it with 130. And the body kind of tells you, the body says, you could, yeah, let's just try going higher. So I'm there, and I just feel great, I know I'll get a body comp, a body comp test where they show how much body fat you have and how much muscle you have. But I would guess I'm up 5 or 6 pounds, and at 76, that's a real achievement. So I'm feeling great, but I feel strong. I feel really strong, and that's the big thing. You can be healthy from an aerobic standpoint, but you don't feel real strong. And so I've been doing that, and I'm just seeing how high I can go. And I said, I wonder one day, I'm about 180, 82, 183 pounds. I said, I wonder someday if I can squat my weight.
Awesome.
But it's not a goal.
Yeah.
You just go along with it. And then I have off days where I just drop the weight down, and so the big thing.
You know what? Like, you're doing a few things there. I mean, the first thing is that, the number one issue, like 82% of seniors, believe it or not, that end up in hospitals, the 82% of the reason is because of falls, because they slip or they lose their balance, and then they don't have the muscle to protect their body, right? So they go down and they break a hip or a knee. Or
the joints are not there to hold your weight. The joints are for mobility.
Yeah.
It's the muscles that have to, it's the muscles that protect the joints. It's, a lot of people, the joints, the human skeleton, I've got a fairly, my bone density is pretty great. My entire skeleton, including my head, if it was just, the skeleton, it's about 7.5, 8 pounds. Your entire skeleton only weighs about 8 pounds, mostly air. It's
and
mostly
water. Yeah, and liquid. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I said.
Yeah. The other thing that strikes me that I love about what you're saying is confidence. Like that muscle. So it's not just what you're saying is, yeah, you're getting stronger and everything else, but what you're really saying is then that translates into your mental well-being.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what you're saying, and you enter the day, confident and feeling good and strong, and so it's not just about being strong; it's mental as well. Right?
Yeah, and I think that probably from a hormone standpoint, there's a lot of release that comes from, But I looked at about 10 articles, and every once in a while I come across a squat article, and they said it's the one exercise, and for those who aren't familiar, you just have weights in your hands. Some people do it with barbells, but I like free weights better. And you go down to almost touch the weights to the floor, and then you straighten right up, and you're pulling it up. But it's hitting about 8 major muscle groups, right from your lower legs right up to your shoulders, your neck, and everything else. And I notice it's straightening me up too. But I just feel probably haven't felt this muscular since I was a high school athlete.
Awesome.
And everything like that. But I really, and there's just this feeling. And the other thing is that my energy, like I would say I'm doing twice as much coaching virtually than I did in person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, your energy's maintained, and yeah, you know what? And it's interesting you mentioned hormones, because when you do what you're doing, muscular work, you increase what's called HGH, which is a hormone that we lose as we age automatically.
Yeah,
So
and mine was very high. I mean, Dr. Jamal, who we know because of Advica, which is the best healthcare service I've experienced. In June 5th, I've been in Canada for 50 years, and he's the greatest communicating doctor that I've experienced in Canada
awesome.
since I've been here in 1971. So
wow, that's great.
He went through my blood test because I can go through your company to satisfy blood tests in the United States with my internist in Chicago. So, great person came to our house, did the blood test, and then Dr. Jamal took me all through it, and he says we're sending this on to Dr. Desai in Chicago, and he says anything that she would like to know, he said I would be happy to talk to her. So just first class experience, and our whole team at Strategic Coach now, because we have a corporate account with Advica. So I just want to, give you some feedback, consumer feedback.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, because that's what it's all about, is helping people get the very best health solutions. So thank you for that. I love it. Love hearing it. So Dan, I'm going to ask you again, I'd love to stay on this longevity thing, because I know all of our listeners, they're looking at you as I look at you at 76, soon to 77, and say, what is that guy doing? Or what's he drinking? Or what's the formula? Because I want to be like him. And I look at, even myself, and we're basically almost 2 decades apart, and I'm going, okay, I want to do what Dan Sullivan's doing. So would you mind sharing, a couple other things, or what would be your next biggest thing? You said muscle. What would be the next biggest thing that you can say, in terms of your longevity or anti-aging?
I think, the next thing is sleep. And, I mean, the things that they're discovering about sleep now are profound. So we had about an hour and a half, 2 hours at Abundance 360, where this doctor, I think he was Australian, Matt Walker.
Yeah.
And he said, human beings, we've evolved over 100,000 years. And he said, you'd think smart human beings over that time would have figured out that if you could get along without any sleep, they would do it. But he says it's never happened. And he says anything short of 7 hours, you're paying a price for it. And he said you're paying a price not only physically, but you're paying a price mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And so we've been good about it. I mean, Babs and I have always, we're early to bed and early to rise people, because both of us have just always been early in the morning. But for example, we've been on free days since Friday of last week, and up until last night. So I had 6 nights, and I did 9 hours, 6 nights in a row. And boy, I mean, that extra hour really makes a difference. And I've got a game plan, as you saw from my previous book that I send out quarterly. My game plan for what's going to happen when I'm 100 years old. That's be 24 years, basically,
Right now. Yeah.
right now. And what I'm doing then is a lot bigger than what I'm doing at 76. And I said, you got to. So we've talked about this before, Kevin, but I think it's a mindset. Longevity is of no interest to you if you don't have longevity mindsets. I mean, there will be great breakthroughs. There will be tremendous new technologies. There will be, unbelievable how fast it's happening. Some of it, age reversal, you'll be able to reverse your age. But you won't do any of it if you don't have any mindset for why you would want to live longer, or why you would want to be healthier, or why you would want to be fitter. If you don't have any reason for doing it, doesn't matter what scientific and medical miracles occur, they're going to be of no interest to you. So previously, I'd identified three mindsets, and their conditions, their mindsets, but their conditions. And one of them is that you have a lot of friends, that as you get older, the number of friends you have doesn't decline, because I think psychologically that you're running out of close personal relationships, speeds up aging, and I think it speeds up dying. Okay. We're very social creatures, and our lives are organized around deeply committed relationships. And so that's the first. And the other one is money. You got to be clear in your mind that whatever's going to be needed, the money's going to be there to pay for it. And it's your money, not somebody else's money. It's your money. There's a sense of independence that comes from money. So you got friends, you got money. And the third one is purpose, that looking ahead at the future, you're working on things, you're aiming to achieve things that are bigger than anything you did in the past. Okay, so those are the three, and I've had those down since you came into the program.
Yep, 100%. Yeah,
but I came up with two more. So I'll bounce them. I haven't done this on any other podcast, so this is a premiere. Novelty, that you have things that you're excited about or you're scared about. Okay, so the novelty can be good novelty or bad novelty. So the last year we got a double menu, worldwide with the COVID, and you say, my golly, I've never experienced anything like this. And I have to tell you, I was born in the last year of the Second World War, and there's been nothing in my life that's been as big a deal as what's happened over the last year, from my perspective. Yeah. And I think we've responded extraordinarily well at Coach, both the company and the program. I mean, we flipped
right away.
Yeah. And so the novelty is a big thing. And our brain, our body really likes novelty. It really likes new things. It really pumps all sorts of really good hormones. And then the fifth one, and this one has really probably triggered more discussion than almost any of the other mindsets around longevity. You have to be proud of who you used to be.
Interesting. Okay.
You can't be using the future to escape from the past.
So give me an example. Give me your own, dig down on that a bit. Your own personal, using an example of that.
Well, maybe there's somebody in the world who wants to walk on Mars, and then Daddy will like him.
Yeah.
I bet if I walk on Mars, Daddy will love me. He'll think I'm a success. I'm just not naming names or anything like that, But I get some of these really intense driven, it happens a lot in finance and technology. You just see these people in politics too. You see it in politics, and it's like one day there's going to be an achievement that proves that I'm a good person, like that, that I've never had any experience of being a good person. So I'm driven to, I'll win an Academy Award. I'll walk on the moon. I'll win the Super Bowl. And Super Bowl, speaking of which, Tom Brady's father was in strategic coach for 10 years.
I never knew that. Wow.
Tom Brady Senior. Yeah, he Los Angeles, because
Cool.
they're
Yeah.
from Los Angeles, and so I never took advantage of it because I don't. Like he was coached by someone else, and he was there for his own purposes. But Tom Brady knows a bit about longevity from a sports.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
I'm betting on him.
You know what? He's amazing. Taking a basically low to mediocre team, and because of his leadership and his enthusiasm and his, I'll say anti-aging and his work ethic and everything else. I mean, he's got them to the Super Bowl. Like it's crazy.
There was a story this week because they won the conference championship game last week.
Yeah.
And so in the locker room, I mean, they've been duds for 20 years. The Tampa Bay, they've had crapola teams for 20 years. And a couple of the people were crying, they were crying. And Tom Brady said, "What are you crying for? We haven't done anything yet."
Yeah, exactly. We got one more game to go. No, I tell you, I bet on him too. Feels somehow.
Greatest story about Tom Brady is starting about 7 years ago. I mentioned this in your workshop when you came there. He deliberately took only 60% of what he could get and left the other 40% for the Patriots to actually. And his big thing was his observation. He's very smart. I mean, he's got a terrific football mind. And he said, what I've observed is that the teams that make it to the Super Bowl have great second string offensive linemen.
That's yeah.
And he said, you can only he left, I'm thinking about 40%. So, it's graded on what you take the top 5 quarterbacks and whatever they make, that's the standard. And he took 40% of less than that for 6 years. So it's, it's in the 15 millions, 15, 20 millions, whatever it is. You can't buy you can't buy a first string more than one of them with that amount of money, but you can buy about 5 second string offensive linemen with that. So you got a great second string because protecting the quarterback is the number one thing, And anyway, everybody was angry at him. All the other quarterbacks were in the league were angry at him. Another reason for being angry at Tom Brady, and all the agents were just screaming because he was lowering the potential. I mean, the
driving down the market price for quarterbacks.
He was shorting the market. He was shorting the market, and he says, such and such quarterback. And they named him as making this much money. And he said, yeah, but they watch the Super Bowl on television.
Yeah. As a lot of them are
another reason to hate him,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Hey, so I just wanted, because you were talking about longevity, and it made me think of, I did a session across Canada this week with like presidents and CEOs of companies, owners of companies. And I asked them a question, how many, show of hands, and it was hard because I've got like hundreds of people on my screen. How many people want to live to 100? Okay. And a few people put up their hand, right? And I said, so then I reframed the question and I said, how many of you would want to live to 100 if you feel the way you feel today? You're healthy, you can walk, you can exercise, and of course, everybody's hand goes up. And it's to your point, Dan, I think the issue is the reason nobody wants to live to 100, or in your case, 156, or in my case, 138, is because we look at old age, through our parents, our grandparents, and we say, we don't want to live the last 20 years of our life like hobbling around and in a wheelchair or on a respirator or in a nursing home. So that's how people think about it. But if you can actually think that you're going to, and it gets back to what you were saying about mindset. If you actually believe that you are going to be as healthy as you are today or healthier 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years from now, then, why wouldn't we all want to live to that age? right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's unique to the individual, what your history is and, what the genes are, yeah, I mean, genetically, because, there are some laws of physics involved in this. You may have a great medical breakthrough, but, your factory equipment it's not like everybody is going to be able to do that. But I met with, Dr. What's his name, who runs the DNA company here in
Yeah,
Toronto.
he's in our network, Mohammed Masur.
Yeah, Mohammed Mansour. And he said, we talked about it and everything else. And I met him through Joe Polish. And he said, your parents did well by you genetically. He says, your parents really did well with you. He said, if you take care of yourself, he said, and I told him my goal, and he said, well, he says it's totally plausible based on,
Wow, amazing,
yeah. And I
amazing.
said, well, that's good. I said, that's good. And I I've done my gene map a couple of times, and there's nothing that would cause me problems, but there could be things. If I had had children, they would have had problems, but nothing that affects me. And Babs and I don't, and we love the life we live and everything. But it's everybody talks about, well, in the future everybody will do that, and I said, it's never everybody. It's always the people who choose. And I said, if you don't choose this, it's just not going to happen to you automatically. And I said, it's going to create probably one of the greatest inequalities in human history.
Well, I'm sure you're seeing that right now. Look around at other people your age,
Yeah.
and you're not seeing, I'd say, very few of you, very few.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say 10% would be a super overestimation. It's probably like 1%.
Yeah, one of the things I'm going to get, the one thing I have that's really fundamentally wrong about the medical community, and I know you've taken every negative and made it into a positive from the standpoint of information, communication, service, everything. But there's one thing that they do wrongly is that you start at 100% and then you start to fail. So if you look at blood tests, and I said, why don't you create 100% as the average and tell the person how much above 100% they are? Like,
Yeah.
I looked at my tests, and I have one thing it's a chronic problem. It showed up on every blood test for the last 15 years. And I have a high white blood cell count. Okay. And I have to do special testing on it every 6 months, but it's been the same now, constant for 12, 13 years. I have great, hematologists in Chicago, really top-notch hematologists, and they said,
Sorry for interrupting, Dan, but isn't higher, maybe it's just within the range, but
it's
higher
chronic lymphoma something. It's sort of it's got a name to it.
Isn't that good though? Because that's your immunity.
Could be, but you can have too much, and then it crowds out what the way I've been told. I'm a layman repeating
Yeah.
something I barely understood in the first place, and but that's the only thing. And then I have I have a missing meniscus in my left knee, and that's it. I don't have anything else. I don't. There isn't anything else. My in the way the U.S. talk about cholesterol, I'm like 168, 169 total cholesterol with really high HDL. And
I know you and I have both, gone to, I'll say, longevity clinics and, clinics like Apex, et cetera, that are, again, part of our network. What's the latest on your biological age? So your chronological age is 76, turning 77, but biologically, what are they telling you? And I know
when I had really reversed that, and so I go for stem cells to Salt Lake City, to Yeah, and there's a clinic there. He's a client, and so I had my chronological age according to the telomeres. They measure telomeres. It was pretty equal to my chronological age,
Yeah,
and but after about a year and a half, it had dropped 10 years. So the last one I got, I was 64,
there you
and
go.
yeah,
Even
but
though you have,
I've missed because we haven't been able to travel for the last year. But yeah, but boy, I'll tell you, the doctors that Peter Diamandis had there, including Dr. Sinclair from Harvard,
yeah,
and he
yeah,
said he said we're really close that we can probably take everything in your body and take it back 20, 30 years, and every 5 years or 10 years you do it again. And he says we think we can do this multiple times. So and everybody in the audience goes, oh, wow, wow. And I said, yeah, but your mind's got to be there. You have
yeah. You know what? That's an amazing point. Yeah, because mine came back similar to yours. It was 11 years. Biological age was 11 years younger. But my goal is to be, next goal is to be 20 years younger, right?
yeah.
And then I'm going to try 30 years younger. But that you try to do the right thing. So one thing that strikes me, I know you've talked about in our free zone frontier, and I just want to bring it out for our audience today, is you talk about young people and hanging around with young people. And I love that concept. So would you mind just sharing kind of your thoughts on that and how it helps your mindset and what we're talking about today, which is longevity?
Yeah, well, what I've noticed over the years that starting at a young age, like when they're children and then teen years, and that people tend to have a peer group. In other words, people they hang out with, people who mean a lot to them, and everything else. That's within 5 years younger or 5 years older than who they are. So when they're 20, it's probably when it's 20, it's not 15, but as you get up to 40 you'd have 35-year-olds to 45-year-olds. When you're 60, you have 55-year-olds to 65-year-olds. And at a certain point, they start dying. They start dying, and you haven't replenished below. Okay, but the other thing is you've lost total perspective on what the world looks like to someone who is, I have clients now that I'm 50 years older than, and these are great entrepreneurs at 25, 25, 26 years old. But I have to tell you, they're not looking at the world the way I did when I was their age. And I said, humans are humans, the kind of stories that people told 2,000 years ago that were humorous, they'd be humorous today. The kind of stories they told that were inspirational 2,000 years ago, they'd be inspirational today. So there's a part of humanity in how we think, which I think is a constant. You can go back, a Neanderthal with a good sense of humor, you'd probably enjoy it. What changes is the environment that we have to respond to. That totally changes. So, I was born 1944, and so all the adults and what we got talking about, for the next 20 years after I was born was about the Great Depression, the Second World War, the Cold War, the possibility of nuclear attacks. We had gone through the big polio scare in the early 50s and everything else. And then rock and roll. Rock and roll was a big deal. You had national television for the first time, and very, very different, very, very different from what a 25-year-old, and we have 25-year-olds in the company. So they're in my workshops. I talk with them, I chat with them, and we ask people questions about what they're really good at, so we get a pretty good read on everybody and how they're looking at their life. And our commitment is that eventually you'll be doing that, coach, the thing that you're great at, that you love at, and you're in teamwork with other people. So they have totally different experience, but they're human. And so so I stay in touch with people, and every decade I go, I'm talking to someone, first of all, who is 20 years younger, than 30 years younger, and 40 years younger, 50. In my 80s, I'll be talking to people who are 60 years younger than me, and my goals are bigger than their goals.
There you go. You know what? And yeah, if I can just share a personal view on that, because I so believe that, because I'm at the age now where people are retiring and they're kind of going into that retirement mode, call it. And I'm super excited, and I credit the coach for that. Like, I'm super excited about the next, I say 25 years, because we have a 25-year plan. But I have so many things I just can't wait to do, which really is around my passion, which is health. But now we've got 3 adult children that all have gone through the coach program. And you know them, Tim and Matt and Lauren. And I love, like, there's not a day that doesn't go by that. And now they're running their own businesses. They're involved in their own companies, everything from graphic design to health. To my oldest son just bought and is growing a technology company out west. But every day I'll say we're doing business together. We share ideas, we share connections, we help each other, and not just them. Then it expands to their network, right? Who are trying to do the same thing. And I actually love it. I love spending time with them. And I look at my own company and the employees we have that just graduated and are early 20s. And I love their motivation, their vibration. It excites me. It motivates me, right?
Yeah.
And I totally believe in that concept, and I love it. So
and I have to tell you, I don't really know many people who are my age or older. When I started Coach, so the program, when we had the workshop program, that was 89. I was 45. I was 45 at that time. And so I had a large number of clients who were in their 50s and 60s. But I can't, there's probably about 5 out of the 500 that I coach that are older than I am. And
I'm just thinking of our group. You're right.
And a lot of them are still working only because they were in Coach.
Because they love it.
Well, yeah. And the Coach has been like a safe haven for them as all their peers, bit the dust.
It's a club.
It's a club.
It's a club, and it's a fraternity to some extent too. It's amazing. So that's why I've been in it 23 years. Dan, one of the things you talked about in terms of longevity was novelty.
Yeah.
Which I love that concept. And I would say, novelty, I think, if I can paraphrase what you talked about, was it's exciting, but it kind of puts those butterflies in your stomach as well. Mm-hmm. And I know, you've put over, every quarter you put out a new book, right? Yeah. A new publication.
So it was interesting because we just brought out the last one, which is what I call the $15 trillion free zone in 2044. And my editor, who's been with me, she edits all my books. She's been my editor for all written material now for 15, 20 years. And she said, do you realize that this is the 25th quarter and this is our 25th book? And I said, I think about it every day. And she said, we're 1/4 of the way to the 100 book. So when I was 70, I said, next 100 quarters, I'm going to write 100 books. And the books are this size, you can read, I timed it. You can basically read one of the books in an hour. And
a flight from Toronto to Chicago.
Toronto, yeah. Plane starts moving to take off in Toronto. Plane comes up to the jetway in Chicago. You can read one of my books, but then I've got audio with it. There's an audio download and there's a video download. And I said, yep, we're right on schedule. But the thing that I'm proudest of, I'm proud of the result. We've created 25. What I'm really proud of is that we have a 10-person team that every quarter, each person has a unique ability in doing that. So I've got it down to 35 hours now. I can write a brand new book, and all my part for the newest book is about 35 hours. And I keep chipping away. I said, somebody else can do this. Somebody else can do this. Somebody else can do this. So that brings up the central concept, which has only emerged for us in Strategic Coach, is the who, not how concept. I think who, not how is the center of the universe.
That's the next thing when you just started talking about the books, because and again,
And here's the original. This is what the original looked like.
There you go.
Yeah.
I have that on my night table too.
Yeah.
So Dan, I'd love you to talk about the book. And first of all, huge congratulations. I mean, and just the whole story. I knew the whole story and in getting to where you got it to. And, within, I'll say days or seconds, it was a New York Times bestseller. The last I saw
Wall Street Journal. Yeah. And
it was over 100,000 copies. I don't know what you're up to now.
I think with Audible and everything, we're probably in the 140,000.
Huge congratulations.
But it's a steady, what's really good about books, nonfiction books, by the way, a bestseller in New York Times is 15,000 books, 15,000. So we're approaching 10 times. 10 times.
Yeah, 10x. Yeah.
Bestseller. But what we're looking at is you can on Amazon you can look at Amazon and you can tell how many books you sold on Amazon yesterday, and it seems to be around 200, 250 books every single day. 200, 250 books are being sold. And I think there's a lot of what I would call affiliation sales. People are saying, you should really read this book. Our next door neighbor here in the Beaches, she's bought 8 of them. She's bought 8 of them so far. And I inscribe each one of them differently. So I've come up with 8 different ways to inscribe them. And she said, everybody should read this book, and
for sure. I ordered them. I read it mine first. I ordered them for my family. I've got a supply at my house. It's the best book. Yeah. So for our audience,
very simple concept.
Yeah, that's what I'd like you to.
And I'm not the originator of the idea. That's Dean Jackson, who's in Free Zone. And Dean had sketched out something 2 or 3 years before. We were doing a podcast, and he said, "You know what? The trick here is you've got a goal that's bigger and better. It's an exciting goal." And that's the what. And the problem with the what is that it turns around and looks at you and says, okay, now you do all the hows to get to here. It's like your future self talking to your present self and say, oh yeah, it looks good here. I really like it here. Now hurry up, do all the hows to get up here. And you're sitting there and I said, I don't know how to do any of this. This isn't me. This isn't my bag. So you're tempted to say, how do I achieve the what? And instead of doing that, you say, now who can help me get to the what? We have hundreds of concepts in Coach. And you know them all because you've been in the workshops when we talked about them. And some of them are 1 quarter concepts, some of them are 1 year concepts. But every once in a while you hit one. This is good forever, and who, not how is one of those. And the what I knew I was on to pay dirt with this one when you would just explain it. Instead of doing the how, you get the who to do it, and people are like, oh, yeah, right.
It's funny. I was talking to my son Tim this week, and again, he's building this company out in Vancouver, and he brought up this, and I said my comment to him was, Tim, back up. It's who, not how. And he goes, yeah, you're right. Like it's the who.
Yeah. So it's so fast, and it's so fast. I mean, some people have moral problems with it, because I grew up blue collar. I'm from a blue collar background in Northern Ohio. And, there was something a little bit immoral about you if you weren't doing everything yourself and you weren't working hard and everything like that. But that's a half a century ago. The world doesn't exist anymore. And, but in the entrepreneurial world, that's the only way that entrepreneurism makes sense is who, not how.
Yeah, 100%.
Otherwise you just created a really bad job for yourself.
Yeah, totally. One that you hate because you're doing all the things that you don't want.
You hate the guy you're working for.
Yeah. Um, so can you just put on your health hat for a second for your own personal life, you and Bob's, because again, I know you're, and I keep bringing us back to health because that's what we're about. But um, how does who not how apply to you in your life from a health standpoint?
Well, if you have a big goal, you see, my whole thing is that anybody that you need in the world will be available to you to help you with your future. If you first of all commit to that future before you know about them.
Okay.
So, and a lot of people say, well, I don't have the resources and capabilities, so why would I set the goal? And I said, because the resources will never be known to you unless you set the goal. But once you announce to the goal, I want to get to here, don't know how I'm going to do it. If there's anybody out there who can help me get to the goal, and all of a sudden the help pops up. Okay. Because people who are great, and I mean, answer the question for yourself, Kevin. When there's somebody who is really striving for something great, and you have a capability to help that person, you'd give them to. I mean, you'd give it to them for free.
Yeah. Yeah, for
We
sure.
always, it's a lot easier to help other people with their goals than it is to work on our own goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I do is I just keep telling, when I'm 100 years old, 2044, um, the total economic impact in the world of the network of strategic coach entrepreneurs is going to be $15 trillion. That puts it slightly ahead of China right now.
It's amazing. Yeah, and I
And
believe
and
that.
people
I
say,
believe that.
how are you going to do that? And I said, um, I'm going to attract about 10,000 really creative entrepreneurs who are excited about being part of that network.
There you go.
And
Awesome.
they said, well, how
Awesome.
many do you have right now? And I said, well, free zone, I got 57. Tremendous progress.
57, but it's still a huge number that they're generating today. That one group, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm proud to say I'm part of that. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's a really, when I look back to the 40s and 50s, we're just living in a very different world. And the last year is the separator. I think that 10 years from now, when people look back, they said, that COVID year was the great separator. There was almost like separate people with goals, people not with goals, people who take health seriously, people who don't take health seriously, people with really good supportive relationships, people with really shitty relationships. They just got separated over the last year. And, I think a lot of the deaths, the deaths that will eventually come out of this is people who just didn't have anything to live for.
Yeah, yeah, it's sad. It's sad for sure.
And
So,
actually, I mean, my mother was quarantined during the Spanish flu epidemic, and we don't know death like they knew death in the old day. They had 50 million die in 3 years, 50 million with a global population of 1.5 billion. Ours is 8 billion. And we're sitting there and say this apocalypse with 100. If you take the people who didn't die of flu during this past year and add it up, people who didn't die in hospitals, the 200,000 in the United States who died for no other reason than they caught something when they were in the hospital, it probably evens out. It
yeah,
probably evens out.
yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I was thinking about who, not how, in terms of your own health and Bob's health. I mean, you've surrounded yourself with a network, your own network of longevity, and you're doing, your programming and
Testing, yeah, all the
Dr.
testing.
Glenn, like, yeah, like you've created that, who, not how, right? Like you've created this for your own health. You've
Yeah.
you you've put the network around you to help you reach that goal of 156, right?
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah. And, that's, we've had whole podcasts on that topic.
Yeah.
But I just have a motto: I don't give death any assistance. I mean, death's been around for a while. Knows what it's doing. It's very patient. Death is very patient. Very focused, very patient. I said, I'm not going to give death any assistance.
Yeah. Perfect. I like that. Question for you. This year we've seen, and again, because I'm in that business, but we've seen a huge increase in mental health issues from a year ago. To give you an idea, we put in a mental health navigation line where people can phone in and get access to a psychiatrist or psychotherapist or social worker, and within a day or less. And it's quadrupled that one business. Actually, clinical depression has gone from 2% to 10% of the population in the last year, and suicide rates have increased more than fourfold. Like, it's crazy, and suicides. So you mentioned this year for you, a year has been a separator, but also you've from what I can gather, you've had an amazing year. Your company's had an amazing year. You published a book. Like, what are some things you can share with our listeners where you can say, this is really this is what helped me, or helped me deal
well,
with it.
it's I'm a big relationship guy, and I mean, I've got 32 strategic coach entrepreneurs who, during this 12-month period, will cross 30 years in the coach. I've seen them every quarter. At a minimum, I've seen them every quarter for 30 years. We have somewhere between 115 and 120 team members, and 70% of them have been with us for more than 10 years. 30% of them have been with us more than 20 years. So I've got a lot of really very stable, very productive, very positive long-term relationships, and at the same time, I'm not really an extrovert, and I grew up on a farm, and I spent a lot of time alone. And when I was little, I kind of learned how to entertain myself, and I learned how to educate myself, and and so I've always had really good being alone um, interests and capabilities.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can never remember being bored, and I can remember I can never remember being lonely. Okay, and yet I have literally hundreds of relationships where the other person would consider me an important person in their life. And I think the one thing that really contributes to mental health is being a hero to other people. Okay, that if your main concern is improving value for other people, it kind of gets you from making up stuff in your mind about what the world is like. So I have a lot of people who depend upon me, and I put myself, in situations where I've got to deliver every quarter. I've got to deliver, you got to be on time. You got to show up on time, do what you say, finish what you start, and say please and thank you. And I just have way more of that at 77 than I had at 57, and I had more at 57 than I had at 37. So this sense of interconnectedness and interactiveness, and that's I guess that's another one of my mindsets. It's more than friendship. Is that you're involved in relationships where people really depend upon you for producing results, and I think that's another thing that extend. So it would contribute to longevity, but I think it also contributes to the what people experience when they are having a nervous breakdown or they're feeling suicidal.
Yeah, health. Yeah, so that having that purpose, and yeah, as you said, being a hero to others, right?
Yeah, it's very very interesting. I'm a Second World War amateur historian, and one of the worst situations that happened during the Second World War was the siege of Leningrad, where the Germans surrounded and cut off all the supplies to Leningrad. And the city started the war with 2.6 million and finished the war with 700,000. So 1.9 million people less, and easily a million of them starved to death or died. No suicides.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
No suicides. That
Wow.
when people feel that they're caught up in something really important, uh, people don't take their lives. They may starve to death. They may kill each other over food, but they're not taking their own lives. And what they find is in times of real crises where there really is an enemy. The problem is, I think governments were caught flat-footed, including our own, including here in Canada and the United States. And the United States is 50 countries. The healthcare system is really run by the governor of each state. The president of the United States doesn't have that much power when it comes to this type of situation. And I think that there's where you have a feeling that big things are happening, bad things are happening, but the news is being kept from you. I think that can really destabilize you mentally.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you know what? I mean, just social well-being. I mean, just the news itself. I mean, I make it a point of staying away from the news or watching, CNN or the news every day because everything's negative, like everything,
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And I think that, and social media has really added fuel to the fire here. And, I haven't watched television. It'll be the end of July. I will have gone 3 years, and I haven't watched any television. And wouldn't you know it, the Cleveland Browns finally had a good season. I didn't
they
watch,
did. They actually had a great year.
but I watched the 15-minute redo on the internet the day after. So I said, best games only have about 15 minutes of good action anyway. So I just get the 15 minutes. But there's a lot of things that are happening where people are getting impacted, and they never had any, no any schooling or any training. How do you think about these things? So I mean, we put a lot of emphasis in coach about people thinking about their thinking. And I think entrepreneurs do this more than other people. And I think in coach, we do 10 times more than most entrepreneurs do of just, how am I thinking about this? No, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting how I'm thinking about it. Not what am I thinking about, but just how am I thinking about what?
Thinking about your thinking. Yeah.
Thinking about your thinking. I think it's
very taught me that. I was young then, although I'm younger now.
If you go back to who was in the benefits business, in the late '90s when you came in, I bet a lot of them aren't around anymore.
Well, they aren't. No, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So, hey Dan, we're basically out of time here, but I'd like to finish with putting you on the spot a bit and just asking you, and it might be something we've already talked about, but again, all of our listeners listen to this podcast because they're interested in their own health and longevity and anti-aging. What would be the number one tip that you can give our listeners right now? If you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to do something tomorrow that's going to be a game changer for my health, what would that one thing be?
Well, I mean, it's basically a North American, it's Canada, the United States that we're talking here. I think the first thing is that getting your gene map of your entire genetic makeup. And it's really dropped now. It's down to about $1,000 now.
$999 now for DNA company.
And the other thing is, it doesn't change for the rest of your life except minimally. I mean, there are some epigenetics that change your genes, and then wherever you got it, they would have coaching that goes along with it. And, you can go to Google and say gene mapping. And I don't, the DNA company here in Toronto, Mohammed Mansour, that would be a good place to start. And it's popping up all over the place in the United States, the clinics for gene mapping. And the reason is that it's about 50 times more informative than a blood test or a series of blood tests. and that's where I'd start. I mean, if you want to know the territory, get a really good map. And if you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
know the territory of your future health and what you need to do today to get where you want to go, I would say gene mapping would be the place. And we did ours, 6, 7 years ago. And, I've had it done twice since. And, it's, um, things don't really move.
Don't move that. Yeah, the technology is getting a little better. It's coming down in cost, but yeah, it doesn't change. I mean, it's your genes. It shouldn't,
Well, the other thing, it's a bit like a card game. It's not the people who get the best hand who are the best poker players, but they know what to do with the cards they get in each deal, and your genes are the cards you got at birth, and then there's a way to play the game that you maximize the benefit of what you got dealt. That's basically what it
well,
is.
yeah, and if I can use myself as an example, I'm predisposed genetically to cardiovascular disease, but meanwhile, my arterial health is 11 years younger than it should be at my age.
Yeah, because
you exercise and I watch what I eat and all that. So the good news is your score and then you can do something about it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There,
Awesome.
there's people. I mean, and they say the great card players don't play their cards; they play the other players.
There you go. We'll end off with that. So Dan, I just want to thank you again. Thank you so much. I know you're in super high demand. Congratulations again on your amazing book, Who Not How. If anybody hasn't read it, pop on Amazon, order it for your family. It's a great read and an easy read. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much again. I keep bringing you back because your wisdom and insights are amazing. And we always have amazing viewership after your podcast. So thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure, Kevin. Thank you very much.